What's good, everybody? Israel, I'm coming back at you on another video. So, with this video, I want to talk about the secret to achieving happiness and wealth in life. And this can be done if you understand and live by the following statement that I'm going to share with you guys. And that statement is this: learn to work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Now, I'm going to say it again, right? Learn to work harder on yourself than you do on your job. And the reason for this is very simple, right? Hard work alone is not going to deliver. If you seek material wealth, right, financial wealth, hard work alone is not going to get you there. Hard work alone is not the answer, because we all know many people who are hard workers that still seem to just get the short end of the stick every time, or seem to just simply get breadcrumbs. And it's because if I'm gonna give people the benefit of the doubt and say that most people, if not the majority of people, are hard workers, right? Let's go with that assumption. Now, if you are also a hard worker along with the majority of other people, then you're no different than the majority of other people, right? You are in fact in the same boat as everyone. So there's nothing that will actually make you stand out. And if you don't invest in yourself, if you don't ever learn anything new, if you don't ever learn a new skill, if you don't ever invest in yourself, then you're not increasing your own value or your own worth to yourself and to society, right? I think that so many people out there work hard or strive to have the label of being a hard worker because, one, they may not know any other route but to work hard, and two, oftentimes I think people obsess over working so hard because it keeps their mind occupied. It takes their mind away from, it makes time go by, and it takes their mind away from present reality. It takes their mind away from their situation and from themselves, right? Because people can work hard throughout the week, and then when they get the paycheck, they'll, they cover the bills and all the necessities, and then they'll go out and spend the money on material things to make them feel better, or to help take their mind off of what it is that they do throughout the week, and then they repeat the cycle, right? I believe that some people work hard because they want to avoid themselves, right? Like, I've seen just people that I've known for since a child, right, that I've seen remain in the same position their whole lives, and they're hard workers, right? That they show up to work each and every day, even if they feel unwell, they still make the sacrifice and show up because that's what's required and expected of them, and they bust their behind and they make it happen each and every day. And yet these same people are still in the same position. And these are people that have, I would like to think, have goals, dreams, aspirations. But working hard is not the end all be all, right? It's not. It's about working on yourself. And the reason for this is because when you work on yourself, you're effectively investing in yourself. You are effectively growing. And investing in yourself is the best investment that you can make, because you are bringing out the better version of yourself. I think people want to work so hard because they don't ever want to look at themselves. They can't look at themselves in the mirror and be proud of who they are, right? And the other reason why I think people struggle with even beginning to work on themselves is because in order for you to begin working on yourself, you need to first come to realization or accept that you need to improve, right? Many people have such a strong ego that they can't allow themselves to believe or accept that they themselves need to improve, right? So many people are flawed people, right? Like, I understand we're human, right? Even though we come from spirit and spirit is perfect, we as humans, we make our mistakes and we have our flaws, and that's okay. But there's some people that can have an ego so big that they will refuse to accept that there's anything actually wrong with them, and that they don't need to learn anything because they've learned what they needed to learn, and they don't need to, come across new ideas because they already know it all. And yet these people complain about the same thing. These people are negative, they're pessimistic, they complain about the same thing month after week after week, month after month, year after year, decade after decade, right? They have the same problems, and they remain, even though they may tell themselves that they have these goals and these dreams, they remain in the same position in life decade after decade after decade. That's because of the hard work paradox, right? Like this idea that it's simply just work hard and you will be recognized and rewarded for your efforts. That is not necessarily true. That is not necessarily the case, right? If you work on yourself and invest in yourself, that is when your confidence goes up, your belief goes up, because you learn the truth about yourself and this world and how this world functions, and you come across new ideas that challenges your previous way of thinking and operating. So a belief is nothing more than a thought you think all the time. And if you never come across new ideas from other people, then you're effectively going to remain the same, because if you're not learning anything new, you only know the information that you already know in your head, and the information that you know in your head is what got you to the position that you're in. And if you don't ever learn any new information or learn anything new, then you're likely going to stay in the same spot, because you're likely going to remain the same person, right? So in order for things in your life to change, you're going to have to make changes in your life, right? Like you will have to change some things, and it becomes more challenging to change something if you're not effectively changing anything, right? That's what people fail to realize and understand. If you just work hard, then guess what? You're a hard worker, great, but you're also on the same boat as millions of other, if not billions of other people who are also hard workers. So what makes you stand out? There's not anything, right? Most people who say they're hard worker, they're just good at doing what they're told to do, right? And it's easy to just do what you're told to do, because then you don't really have to think. You don't really have to. It's sort of like, oh, these are my instructions. Cool, I'll do it. And then there does, like, much thought is not necessarily required. The people who are truly happy and truly like financially successful, these are the people that operate using their minds. These are the thinkers. These aren't the hard workers, right? Like I can make the case that entry-level employees at companies, right, depending on where you work, but I can make the case that there's some entry-level employees that work harder than the CEOs of companies. But it's because the CEO of companies, they aren't actually working with their hands, right? They're using their mind, and that's because they've invested in themselves, right? When you invest in yourself, that is when, like I mentioned, you develop a supreme confidence. You basically become open-minded, because you're critically thinking. New ideas come and you're critically thinking about these ideas, and if a new idea appears that's better than the previous idea or belief that you had, then you'll adopt it because it makes sense to, right? So you will effectively change, and you will get better. You will begin to understand yourself and who you are and your place in this world. You'll begin to understand the world itself and how it all functions. And when your perspective changes, because that's what's going to happen, right? Because you are going to be changing, therefore your perspective is going to be changing. And once your perspective begins changing, that's when you see things differently. And because you see things differently, now you begin operating differently. That is how it all works. People who don't invest in themselves, because they don't learn anything new, they remain the same, because all the information that they have in their head got them to where they are right now. And it'll be unlikely for that same information to completely propel them to a different stratosphere, right? So that is why they end up remaining the same person, and they don't ever understand why, and it doesn't make sense to them, but it's because they refuse to invest in themselves. There are some people who will go decades with a nasty attitude and then wonder why they can't ever make progress in life, and that is because their attitude, not only does it, repel people away from them, like no one wants to associate themselves with them, the law of attraction is also working its magic, right? The negative energy that person's putting out with the attitude is what gets attracted back to them. So it keeps them in a bad position, right? So this is what I mean. The secret to happiness and wealth is proportionate to you investing in yourself, because you need to remember this. What I'm going to say is key. Studies have shown that income does not far exceed personal development. So as you continue learning and improving and growing, that means that you yourself will begin to be more valuable, right? You will see yourself as being more valuable. You will see yourself as a commodity to the world, that you can actually offer something of substance to other people and to the world. So as you yourself improve, right, you are now seen as more valuable in the eyes of other people, and you can now provide more value to other people. And that is how income works. That's how money works. Because this right here, this piece of paper, this right here is, you can look at this as a physical representation of value. You can look at this as a certificate that you provided something of value, whether it's a product or service, to someone other than yourself, or in other words, to other people, right? So if you invest in yourself, you will begin to realize that you are in fact great, that you have all this potential, that you can be, do, or have anything, that you can go and accomplish anything, you can become anything, that you can make anything happen. You begin thinking differently about yourself. You begin feeling this way about yourself. So you begin to become someone that is more valuable in society. And if you're more valuable because you invest in yourself, which you did something that most people aren't willing to do, now you have so much more that you can offer of value to other people. So if you offer more things of value to other people, then this has to flow into your life by default, right? By law, by cause and effect, right? Your value that you provide is the cause, and this right here, the income, is the effect that's going to follow that. That's how it all works. And true happiness, true happiness is less about what you get and what you receive, and more so about the person that you become, because that is what true happiness is. True happiness is internal. You don't actually need any material things or any objects to make you happy, because happiness comes from within, and you will have much more happiness in your life, and you'll be happier at the person you've become, much more happy at the person you become, because you've invested in yourself, right? Because now you show up with the right attitude. Now you show up with the right mindset and the mentality that you can be, do, or have anything, and can accomplish anything. And you can also deliver that same energy to other people, and you can also teach other people. You can, right? So when you invest in yourself, this is the best thing that you can do, because when you invest in yourself, that's when everything in your life has to improve. Your set of circumstances has to change and improve. Your income has to change and improve, right? Everything follows when you invest in yourself. And many people, I believe that many people, they fall into the trap of hard work, because in order to invest in yourself, in order to work on yourself, you first essentially have to admit that you yourself are flawed. You have to admit that you are not perfect. You have to admit and basically put down your ego and say, you know what, like, I'm not perfect and I need to get better. That is the moment of acceptance that you need to come to with yourself in order to invest in yourself. That you need to accept that maybe you weren't actually perfect, or maybe even good enough, and you need to go out and get better. And most people cannot swallow that pill. Most people can't put down their ego to just say, you know what, let me go read this book. Let me go learn something. Let me learn something from someone who's in the position that I want to be in, to see if there's anything that I can pick up from that person. I guarantee you there will be something. I guarantee you they will share either a story or an example or something. If they talk about how they got into that position, I guarantee you they'll be explaining a concept or something that's drastically different. They'll explain how they were operating, and it'll be drastically different than how you've been thinking and operating. Guaranteed. Because life is a game of information. People who have access to the right information are the people that are going to win. It's just that simple, right? Because information changes circumstances. You've probably been operating with the best of your ability with all like the information that you've had available, and that's okay. There's no need to be mad or beat yourself up. But when you come across new information that turns your world upside down or makes you critically think about the ways you've been operating, and you're just like, man, I've been doing things this way, this isn't the most effective way to be doing things. Just because everyone is doing it, that doesn't mean it makes it right, or that doesn't mean that it makes it the best way to be operating. Let me try doing things differently, because this way makes a lot more sense. That is how you begin changing, right? So the secret to happiness and wealth in life is learning to work harder on yourself than you do on your job, because people will just use that title, that curtain, and say, oh, well, I work hard, I work hard. Well, then you probably are no different than everyone else. There's nothing that makes you stand out because you probably work equally as hard as this other person right here. But what makes you different, like what actually makes you stand out compared to this person, right? If all of you are working hard, it could just be that you are all exceptionally great at following instructions. But in society, the true winners, the true leaders, the true people who are in charge are the thinkers. These are the people that use their mind. These are the people that invested in themselves, because most people aren't willing to do that. Most people aren't willing to accept that they're not perfect and that they're not good enough and that they need to make improvements. Most people are not willing to do that. It's so much easier to just work hard, because when you work hard, you're just being told what to do, and you can keep your mind fixated on that, on the activity at hand, and you don't ever have to look at yourself in the mirror. Right? I can look at myself in the mirror and be happy and proud at the man that I've become, because I've drastically improved from where I once was. And I was still a great person. But when I came across this material, that's when I realized, like, wow, I'm still so far away from where it is that I want to be. And I was able to see a clear disconnect. And so because of that, I committed myself to showing up and getting better and improving on myself each and every day, because I know where that's going to take me. And I'm significantly happier in the person that I am now than I was back then. And I know that wealth, finances, income, etc. will follow, because it has to by law, right? That's how it is, right? If you want to increase your income, you need to provide more value to the marketplace. And you can do that once you've invested in yourself, because now you are a more valuable person and human being. That's how it all works, right? So that is the secret to happiness and wealth in life. It is simply learning to work on yourself harder than you do on your job, because your job, you're a hard worker, then guess what? Great. If I was in charge of a company and I'm looking to hire employees, I'm definitely looking for the hardest workers, because then they will give me more bang for my buck, right? It's like if I'm paying two people the same amount of money, I would much rather have someone who's a hard worker that can do twice, 3 times the amount of labor that one person can get done, right? And pay them the same amount, right? Like, it makes sense. So the hard workers are typically the people who remain at entry level. However, the people that actually run things are the people who've learned the correct information. They've invested in themselves. They've grown as a person, because now, since they're more valuable as a person, they can offer more value to other people, and that will allow income, of course, material wealth, to flow. And obviously, when you look at yourself in the mirror at the end of the day, you'll be much happier at the man or woman that you've become, the person that you've become when you've invested in yourself, because now you are a much better person. You operate from a different vantage point. You show up with the right attitude. You're smiling because now you know the right information. You understand who you are, who you've been this entire time, how this world all works. And now you have a completely different vantage point, or which is perspective, right? Or mission that you're operating with. The mission that I operate with now is completely different than the mission I used to operate back then many years ago, right? So I'm doing things differently, and me doing things differently is going to lead to different results. So that right there, if there's anything you ever need to remember to take away from to live a happy, fulfilling life, it is the idea you need to remember to learn to work harder on yourself than you do on your job, because investing in yourself is always going to be the greatest investment that you can make. So that wraps up the video. Enjoy the video. Do leave a like and subscribe, as we are on the road to a million subscriber, guys. So once again, it's Show Up, and I'm out. I'll see you guys for the next video.